So, hello everybody, my name is Artūrs Mozers, and I represent the Laser Center of the University of Latvia. The Laser Center of the University of Latvia is also a part of the Latvian Quantum Initiative project as a part of the quantum sensor development. And today, I'll briefly introduce some applications of these quantum sensors, particularly for sensing the magnetic field. So first of all, what are quantum sensors? So in general, quantum sensors make use of the quantum mechanical processes that can enhance sensitivity and improve the accuracy of physical measurements. And because of this improved accuracy and sensitivity, they can also deliver on some new novel capabilities. Yes, so mainly all of the next talk will be, as you can see, there's a variety of physical properties that can be measured, but I will be concentrating on the magnetic field measurements. So there exist several types of quantum magnetic field sensors. And the ones that involve light-matter interaction, in general, can be called optically pumped magnetometers. And one example of such optically pumped magnetometer is based on a defect in a solid, namely in a diamond. And as you heard from the previous talk, one such defect is the nitrogen vacancy center. And I'll just briefly remind you what an NV center is, or nitrogen vacancy center is. So the diamond consists of a regular crystal lattice that is comprised of carbon atoms. And if you remove two of these carbon atoms, and you leave those spaces empty, and then you introduce a substitutional nitrogen atom in one of those empty spaces, and you leave the other empty space empty, and you call the empty space vacancy, and you have next to it a nitrogen, you call this defect a nitrogen vacancy center. And as it was also already mentioned in the previous talk, I'll just briefly remind the general idea behind the measurement of the magnetic field. So you illuminate the diamond that contains these defects with a green laser, and due to its level structure, it emits red fluorescence, and this fluorescence can be collected with a photodetector. Now, when you introduce an external magnetic field, the level or the signal of this red fluorescence changes. And from this change in this red fluorescence, the magnetic field can be deduced. And here are some applications of these quantum sensors based on NV centers. So one is to use them for geological surveys to identify magnetic field anomalies, and also use them for mineral exploration, and even for archaeological studies. Another example is for high current stabilization. So you can introduce this magnetometer that can sense the magnetic field that is produced by the current flowing through a wire, and then the magnetometer can send back a feedback to the power source, indicating that the current is either above or below the desired current value. And because these types of magnetometers are quite robust, they can be used in harsh environments, such as outer space. And also, we did in the Laser Center, we did a feasibility study funded by the European Space Agency to study how these magnetometers could be actually developed for space exploration. And a very similar application to the one given by the previous talk is magnetic field imaging, which in general works in a very similar way as you just take a picture with a camera. So the basic setup is almost the same as the one described in the general case. You just replace the light intensity sensitive detector with an array of this, and this will be called a camera. So that gives you the spatial resolution of the magnetic signal. And these are some samples obtained in our laboratory where some samples were placed below the diamond and then registered the optical signal. So the image on your left in the grayscale is the optical image, and on the right is a color map of the magnetic field image. And as you can see, some surface defects on this thin film produce some magnetic field signatures, and even very tiny ones can also be observed with this method when there is no visible evidence in the optical image. And also this can be done for biomagnetic samples, for example, bacteria, and also some cells and proteins. So another very interesting application involves the usage of these magnetometers for positioning and navigation. So just a brief reminder of how we usually perform navigation in modern days using the GPS network. So there are satellites in the Earth's orbit that emit electromagnetic signals, and in our cell phones or other devices, we have a receiver that receives these signals, and from the positions of these satellites and on the timing that we receive these signals from these satellites, the position can be determined. So there exist several problems with the positioning using a GPS signal, and one of the main concerns for the defense sector are two problems: that they're prone to jamming, and they are also quite easily to be spoofed. So one example of spoofing done by University of Austin, Texas, researchers from University of Austin, Texas. So they tried to spoof a multi-million, a GPS system of a multi-million dollar yacht, and so they so spoofing means that you deliver an additional signal on top of that they're receiving from the satellites, and you overcome the information from the satellites by introducing your own signal, not coming from the satellites. And from that, you can give a false signal, giving a representation of a false position. And this leads to the GPS system on the yacht to think that they're in another position, and therefore they will change the course. And effectively, now you have taken over the control of this vessel. So magnetometers could also be used for navigation, and they require two things. So one thing, they require a very high precision magnetic field map, and another thing that they require, preferably all three dimensions of the magnetic field. And another thing that they require is the high precision sensor that will sense the magnetic field. And when you put this high sensitivity sensor in an environment that senses the Earth's magnetic field, and you compare the measurement to the value produced from the map, you can determine the position of the sensor. So, and in the Laser Center, we also, there's an ongoing project funded by the European Defense Fund called Adequate, where we produced such a prototype device for high precision magnetic field mapping. So this is a prototype for making these high precision maps of the magnetic field. So one way is to make these maps, to perform the measurements, and if you don't have the ability to make these measurements, there exists also some geomagnetic models that can try to simulate this magnetic field. We also did a preliminary test on our algorithm for positioning. So we used a commercially available magnetometer, and we mapped out one empty room in our university building. And this is the magnetic field map of this room. And then we positioned our sensor somewhere in this room, and we performed the measurement and tried to compare it to the map. And the image on the bottom part of the slide indicates the probability of finding this sensor in this particular region of space. And as you can see, most of the grid points are with 0 probability, and there are a few with very high probability. So this is one example, and this is another example of this positioning algorithm. Of course, we're using a commercially available magnetometer that has a limited sensitivity, and we're using it indoors where there are large magnetic field gradients that can it works well. But if you're using it outside, or you're using it for airplanes, then you might need more increased sensitivity. So I'll briefly skip over this because it's just a brief overview of what happens when you introduce anomalies in your magnetic field map. But as you can see, it distorts the magnetic field in a very limited region of space. So mostly the magnetic field map that you had before this anomaly was introduced is mostly left unchanged. And there exists more applications of NV centers, as also introduced in the previous talk. There's just 2 highlights here that we're working on also in the laser center. So one is for quantum random number generation, and another one is for quantum computing. So NV centers are very promising because they're very robust, they're solids, they're in a diamond, and that's very nice. But it's not the only medium that is sensitive to the magnetic field. Another medium is our atoms, or specifically a gas of atoms or atomic vapor. And they also work in a similar way, as I described the measurements for magnetic fields based on NV centers. So we have a laser source. It interacts with, in this case, with the atoms, with the gas of atoms, and then the optical signal is detected by a photodetector. And if we introduce an external magnetic field, it will produce some changes in this optical signal. And from these changes in this optical signal, again, we can deduce the value of the magnetic field. And the advantages of using atomic-based magnetic field sensors is that they offer a very high sensitivity for detecting these magnetic fields. And so the current industry standard for the highest magnetic sensitivity is for squid detectors. So SQUID stands for a superconducting quantum interference device. So, and they hold the industry standard for highest sensitivity. But nowadays, the atomic magnetometer community is really gaining up on this sensitivity figure of merit. And really, the battle is neck to neck. So, magnetometers based on atoms are on the very frontier of the magnetic field sensitivity. So one application of these atomic-based, highly sensitive magnetometers is the magnetoencephalography. So this is a study of the magnetic fields produced by our brain. So the magnetic fields produced by our brain are very, very tiny, and therefore you need this high sensitivity sensors. So usually the magnetoencephalography signal, or MEG signal, consists of a stimulus, and then we observe the changes in our signal in several different frequencies. And because the magnetic field gets less interaction in the bone structure or in human tissue, it gives a very precise location of the activated neurons or nerves in our brain. So this gives a better spatial resolution. So currently, MEG is done mostly with squid systems, but they require magnetically shielded rooms, and they require cryogenics, and they restrict the movement of the human body. By introducing smaller sensors and distributing them in an array, you can perform these measurements that are tailored to the current subject's shape of the head, and you can also enable some movement. And as for the magnetic shielded rooms, there are currently ongoing work to make these sensors less requirements for the ambient magnetic field shielding. And there exists another biomagnetic source in the human body, which is the heart. And it produces magnetic fields which are some 1,000 times larger than the ones produced by our brain, but still they're very tiny and difficult to measure. But you can, and also you can arrange again these sensors in an array and make it a wearable system. And so these are people from the US-based company TwinLeaf performing an experiment outside of a magnetically shielded room and still being able to measure the faint signal, magnetic field signal of the human heart. So, this removes the necessity of magnetic shielded rooms. As I mentioned before, atomic-based magnetometers do not require cryogenics. And another benefit of performing magnetocardiography is that you do not require a direct contact with the human skin. And this could prove beneficial for example, for burn victims. So a brief overview of some projects that we're working on in the Laser Center on atomic magnetometry. So we did a NATO-funded project where we developed a method for using registering a magnetic signal from atoms that can detect the magnetic field in 3 orthogonal directions. And then currently ongoing project is to improve the accuracy and sensitivity of these sensors by addressing some very specific magnetic sublevels that enables the signal, the measurement signal, to be linear in a broad range of magnetic fields. So in conclusion, I would just remind you that the NV centers and atomic magnetometers can be used for high sensitivity magnetic field measurements. And highlights of 2 applications from this talk are, so the NV center-based magnetometers can be used for positioning and navigation in the geomagnetic field, and the atomic magnetometers show great progress in the sensing of biomagnetic fields. So thank you for your attention.
Thank you, Artūrs, very much.